wabarakatuh to Madam Hazilna binti Muhammad Fadil and to all my friends. Today, me and my friends from Group 11 are going to present about the given case, which is about nuisance. The situation is, Wawa and Nita are neighbors. Wawa is chef, whilst Nita is a music teacher. Nita had for several years been giving music lesson in her house. Wawa, irritated by the noise, banged the wall, shouted, blew whistles, and beat on time trash every time Nita had her music lesson, with a malicious intention of annoying Nita and ruining the music lesson. Nita is annoyed by Wawa's act, advised her as to her rights. Okay, first of all, the issue is whether Nita can make Wawa liable for private nuisance. Nuisance is defined as range of thought that concern with protection of private right in the enjoyment of land. Furthermore, nuisance can also be anything that causes hurt, inconvenience, or damage that occurred due to the result of defendant's activity. For instance, pollution by oil or noxious fumes, interference with leisure activity, or offensive smells. There is two types of nuisance. The first one is public nuisance. Public nuisance is any interference of public rights that obstruct, damages, or causes inconvenience to the whole community and not just some particular person, such as selling contaminated food or construction of structure on a public way. Public nuisance will only exist when a person knows that it exists and allow it to continue for an unreasonable time and circumstance. The second one is private nuisance. Private nuisance is defined as an unlawful interference with a person's use, comfort, enjoyment, and interest over his land. Plaintiff must prove that interference of defendant with the enjoyment of his land and as well as his interest in the land before entitle the plaintiff to sue the defendant for private nuisance. Based on the problematic question, the situation has been categorized as private nuisance because it is between two persons, which are Nita and Wawa, and does not involve the whole community. Before the establishment of private nuisance, there are a few elements that need to be fulfilled.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nafina Raja Ahmad Niza. Today I will explain about the first element is substantial. The first element is substantial. The inference must be unreasonable and substantial as against the use and enjoyment of land. The unreasonable and substantial will be considered by the court based on 5 factors, which are damage and locality, benefit of the defendant activity, extraordinary sensitivity on the part of the plaintiff, temporary interference, and isolated incident, and the last factor is mileage. In this case, the related factor is malice, wherever malice may make the defendant to take unreasonably. Coincidentally, the case of Nita and Wawa is almost similar to the case of Kristen v. Davy, 1893, where the plaintiff neighbor or who is the defendant was responsible for the interference because his act with full of malicious intention to ruin the plaintiff music lesson. It showed that the defendant action were intentional and unreasonable. The first element is fulfilled. The Wawa malicious interpret Nita music lesson every time she has one in her house, which means that she at her own will and not being forced by anyone. Therefore, the act of Wawa's interpret Nita music lesson is considered as substantial and unreasonable as decided in case of Kristen v. David, 1893. Thank you.
In this slide, I'm going to talk about the second element. The second element is continuous interference. The second element required to be proven is continuous interference. The defendant's interference must be frequent or continuous. This can be applied to the case of Stargate v. Bridgman, 1879, where the defendant was a biscuit manufacturer and his machine caused a lot of noise and vibration on his neighbor, the plaintiff's premises. This has been going for 20 years. The plaintiff was a doctor, then built a treatment room in his garden behind his house. The plaintiff decided to sue for nuisance because of noise and vibration that interfere with his patient's treatment. The plaintiff claims nuisance for noise and vibration that interfere with his premises. Therefore, the defendant was nuisance and interfere with the enjoyment of the plaintiff's property. The court has made its decision that, previous to the action, the defendant did not constitute a nuisance because it did not interfere with the plaintiff's enjoyment of his property before plaintiff sued the defendant. As it is, the defendant was continued to serve with an injunction. However, in this case of the Sturgis v. Bridgman 1879, the second element on the defendant's intention to apply continuous interference is not fulfilled when the plaintiff sued the defendant for making a noise and vibration only after he built a new treatment room in his garden, which means that before the action was taken, the noise and vibration did not interference the enjoyment of the plaintiff's property. Therefore, based on the decision of the case Sturgis v. Bridgman 1879, the second element is fulfilled because Nita had been giving music lessons in her house for several years, and Wawa maliciously interrupted and annoyed Nita's music lesson every time when she had one, whereby it shows that the nuisance was occurred continuously.
Conclusion. From the above application, it is clear that all the elements for nuisance in categories private nuisance have been established. Therefore, Nita can take action against Wawa for private nuisance. Wawa cannot defend herself because the situation of this case does not follow the criteria of defenses, which is necessity, consent, contributory negligence, act of God, and act of stranger. That's all from our group. Thank you.